you right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about the team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, guess any.
This is Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Friday edition of All Things Sports, NESSP at Night with your girl, Sonja Pearson. I am joined tonight with my amazing co-host, my colleague, my friend from the Sunday morning big football show, the one and the only Jack Hirsch. Hi, Jack. How are you?
Hey, good, Sonja. I guess I got promoted. It said special guest, and now I'm a co-host. I didn't even have to say a word to get the promotion.
All right, and you have been promoted. So tell us a little bit about yourself to my audience who may not be familiar with us on the Sunday morning big football show.
I hate talking about myself, but I'll make it quick. I've made my mark in the sport of boxing, basically. I'm the president of the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame, past president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. And that's a sport I've been involved with writing for since the mid-1980s, basically. So it's quite a long time. And I've been doing the Mac and Jack show the last few years with Mac. And I'd rather talk about football than boxing. I mean, football, baseball. I mean, boxing I love talking about when you have to write fights, but the sport can be a little dysfunctional at times.
It can be a little dysfunctional. We're so excited about having you on, Jack, and hello to all our viewers coming on. Hi, Early, my sister in Virginia, but she's a native New Yorker, so she's put a little comment in there. So hello, everyone. Yes.
I got the home team here. I'm in Florida now, but I'm a New Yorker.
Yes, and so you're up and down the Eastern Seaboard, as they would like to say. So everyone come in. Hello. Thanks so much for joining again, all of my YouTube subscribers. Checking us out also, producers Linda and Mac on Roku TV on Northeast Streaming Sports. Thank you so much for this amazing platform. And let's get ready to talk a little bit.
You remind me of a fighter after fight who's thanking everyone, mentioning every name, Sonja. You got to it right in the beginning.
I sure did. Thanks so much, Jack, for that. And that's why I'm so happy to be part of the team. Now, Jack, let's just go ahead and put it out there real quick. Vince McMahon today, WWE's own, has an allegation out there about sex trafficking. Now, if you're like me, audience, I grew up watching the WWF, WWE. I saw Vince McMahon's daughter out there, Stephanie, I think what's her name, helping run all these wrestling rings. And now these allegations are coming out. What are your thoughts without really giving
I don't think it's sex trafficking. I think a female wrestler was asked, according to her, to do sexual favors. A few months ago, I read this book called Ringmasters, a current book that came out. It detailed heavily the activity in the WWE with Vince McMahon and some of the workers who worked under Vince McMahon. And there was even a story with Shawn Michaels when he was a young wrestler coming up. He was asked to do something that, against his will, and he couldn't wait to run out of there quick enough. And there's certain pressures on certain wrestlers. And in the past, McMahon has been accused by certain female wrestlers of improper conduct, maybe asking them to do things for other wrestlers. And it's been a troubled past with McMahon to a degree. There was a time when Vince McMahon completely dominated the WWE. He could snap his fingers. What he said went. Now there's a board of directors, and they condemned what Vince McMahon just did. And The Rock also joined their board of directors. And The Rock has a very good reputation. He's not going to get dirty by joining something and being in cahoots with Vince McMahon. You get the feeling McMahon, who was in trouble with the WWE board of directors about a year ago, this might be it. This might be it altogether. Yeah. There might not be any comebacks. Even if he beats this thing legally, there might be a way to move on from him. But I'm sure as far as stock goes and assets, McMahon owns quite a bit. So might he be willing to sell? Might he not be willing to sell? But, we've seen this in other sports, Sonja, with other owners. Like, let's say a Daniel Snyder with the Washington Commanders.
Right.
He vowed he never was going to sell. He was in this position of power, but he kept getting these accusations against him. And in the beginning, he can get through it. But eventually, they pile up, the fatigue set in, and the WWE, they're not going to want to deal with all this baggage with Vince McMahon with these charges, especially if they're proven to be true in the court of law.
Right, and that's very a very high thing that's going on in our nation, in our world right now, especially in the United States, where we see more of an awareness on that entire arena of illegalities, for lack of a better word. And so it's no different in the sports arena. Moving along to other legal issues, it appears that Miami Dolphins Tyreek Hill has filed for divorce from his wife of 76 days. Now, neither of those parties nor their attorneys have made a public statement, but there is a court document that has been leaked out in Miami. And so it looks like he has filed for divorce. I'm a little shocked because he's always talked about how his wife tweets him texts him during halftime and encourages him. And in fact, I think he was mentioned as saying they pray together. So we know that Tyreek Hill was slapped with 2 child support suits during the off season, just really quick back-to-back suits from 2 different women where they were basically requesting more money. Those are 2 children he already had prior to marrying his wife. And who knows, he's only been home a couple of weeks. Maybe it was just too much for the 2 of them to bear. And here he is now filing for divorce. And he's been plagued with a lot of issues. His house burning down was just one of the significant ones. And then now the other personal matters. Your thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, if there's been a request for an increase in child support payments, it doesn't mean Tyreek Hill has done anything wrong. In reality, he hasn't. Anyone can make that request. So on the surface, it makes Tyreek Hill look bad. If there's a court order because he hasn't been fulfilling his obligation of giving the child payments, now that looks bad, okay? Right. And we don't have that. And also that fire that was a little bit suspicious. And now the divorce.
Yep.
Chances are one has nothing to do with the other. I'm not inferring it does, but you kind of wonder. And also Tyreek Hill at the end of the season being injured, breaking down. I do know he caught the touchdown pass in the playoffs against the Chiefs, but you kind of wonder how focused he was at the end of the year because he was on pace to break a receiving record. And then things started slowing down for him as well. So you just kind of wonder everything going on in his life. I mean, some players could put the turmoil out of their mind and they can still perform, but others can't really because they're human. They think about things like that all the time.
Yes, and they found out that actually that fire was supposedly started by a child that was playing with matches. So moving on away from that, we wish Tyreek and all his personal endeavors, we wish him the best, and we hope that things get better for him real soon. Looks like Linda's saying hello. We greeted you earlier. I don't know if you heard us, producer Linda, but hello. And she
I've already done it. It's too late, Linda. You should have warned Sonja earlier. I struck the first blows by yakking away.
Thanks for tuning in, as always, and supporting us here. All right, the big news, there's been some coaching hires, Jack, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday with the Man Cave. I had Big Mike on from Cleveland, but there's never enough talk on that subject. Of course, I have zero idea why the Panthers got who they got, but let's talk about the bigger picture, who the Atlanta Falcons out the blue seemed to take Raheem Morris when Belichick had just interviewed twice. Now, I saw an article earlier that said the front office down here in Atlanta was in a conundrum with Arthur Blank because of him considering Bill Belichick, because they were afraid that Belichick would come in and basically shape up the house and get rid of a lot of people. Your thoughts? Looks like
Well,
Belichick's not hiring.
we've seen that happen all over. The only way a coach like Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel is going to get a job is if the owner steps in and makes the decision and tells his GM, this is my hire, this is the guy I want, and he basically gives him the control, and he has the GM work along with him. The GM isn't his superior in any way, shape, or form. What cost Bill Belichick the job in Atlanta, believe it or not, was the Rooney Rule. No one talks about it because if it wasn't for the Rooney Rule, Arthur Blank would have made a quick hire, Bill Belichick. He wouldn't have gone through an interview process with anyone. He would have called Belichick and he'd say, I'd like to keep these guys on the staff. And I don't want to get rid of them, but you'll have the final say in things. And it would have worked out one way or the other. But once they started interviewing a number of candidates, all of a sudden, Raheem Morris, who by all accounts is a very pleasant individual and who Arthur Blank likes a lot from the time he was an interim coach in Atlanta in 2020, gave a good impression. He'll work within the Falcon organization. In the last 3 years, Raheem Morris, who had a tough time the 3 years he was coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2009 to 2011, reinvented himself as the defensive coordinator of the LA Rams, where they won a Super Bowl with him as a defensive coordinator. And he can work within a team structure much easier than a Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's a win-now coach. But I'm going to tell you something, Sonja. Bill Belichick isn't going to be a head coach at the start of next season because basically there's only two jobs left, the Commanders and the Seahawks. The Seahawks are not likely to hire Bill Belichick because they're getting a version of Pete Carroll in a way, not personality-wise, an older coach in his 70s, even though Bill Belichick can improve the defense a great deal. So I don't think he goes to Seattle. And the Commanders hired a new GM from the 49ers. No relationship with Bill Belichick. Why would a GM want to bring Bill Belichick on board and have Bill Belichick start calling the shots? So I think what happens next season, Sonja, Bill Belichick's name is going to be all over the place. As soon as teams start floundering in the beginning of the year, their fan base is going to have signs, right. We want Belichick.
Right.
It's going to be all over. I'm telling you, it's going to be a constant theme. And at some point next season, a team's going to want a quick fix or something. They're going to be like 2-6, and they bring in Bill Belichick.
And to try to make him the fixer. And good evening, Rick Sherlock. He said he has the same thought and shared that with Keith this morning, talking about Keith Angle, another supporter. Now, Rick has another question. I'm going to put a pause on it. It's about the Panthers. I'm going to get to it, Rick, I promise you. But it's not about their coach. It's about something else. And I cannot wait to mention that. But I need to stay on this Belichick thing a moment. So, Jack, you mentioned something that I've actually considered, not only with Bill Belichick, but Pete Carroll. Not necessarily Mike Vrabel, but especially Carroll and Belichick. Like you said, they're both in their 70s. Coaches, to be honest, most teams are not really keeping coaches around that long anyway. Should not the Falcons have at least given Belichick the 3 years, because that's all they really are giving people anyway on an average down here. Go ahead and go after your quarterback, and then possibly try to at least go to a playoff and Super Bowl contention down here rather than wait?
You would think so. If you hire Bill Belichick, what it does is increase the marketability of your franchise if you need it increased. I mean, there's certain franchises, they bring in someone and it's a complete game changer. I mean, that's why even in other sports, why when Aaron Judge was a free agent, I said the Yankees have to sign him, because whenever the Yankees go to another city, and you think of the Yankees, you think of Aaron Judge. Any team Bill Belichick was with gets instant credibility. My Jets are a better example. When they signed Aaron Rodgers, the Jets became relevant again nationwide. They became the hottest team in the NFL that people actually wanted to see because of Aaron Rodgers. If they didn't have Aaron Rodgers and they had, let's say, Kirk Cousins, for example, it wouldn't have quite been the same. And I think Belichick does that for a franchise. The Carolina Panthers, your team, they just hired a coach. But if they hired Bill Belichick, you better believe your Panther fan base would be psyched. Just the idea of seeing Bill Belichick standing on the sideline. But when we get past the mystique and the charisma, the bottom line is he hasn't won a playoff game the last 4 years. Think of it, Sonja. And before he went to the Patriots, he had 5 years with the Browns. They were 36-44 with one playoff appearance. So, but what he did in between those 2 decades with the Patriots are historic. And I know everyone says it was Tom Brady, but Bill Belichick built a darn good defense and made a lot of great moves as well.
He did. And Jack, I was a little worried there for a second. I heard the sirens in the background. I was like, are they coming for Jack?
It's over here.
Are they coming for Jack?
It's fine. Yeah. I should have put it on mute. I hate to mute myself, so.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, so Belichick is his own brand. And in him being his own brand, perhaps that is to his detriment as to why he was not picked up. We know he has about 15 games left to try to break this next record that he's trying to break. And so it would have been poetic justice, in my opinion, for him to come to Atlanta and possibly even play New England in that 15th game that he would need to break the most winningest coach and all that good stuff.
If he wins this season, he'd have to do it over 2 years.
It would be 2 seasons, right?
Let me throw this at you and let me get your opinion on this. Everyone is talking about the record in regards to Belichick. We don't know what Belichick really thinks of the record. Obviously, he's human. He probably wants to break it. We don't know whether that drives him or not. We know he loves coaching. That's safe to say. If it wasn't for the record, would Bill Belichick take a job as a defensive coordinator in the NFL or take a head coaching job in college? Because you better believe he can get a job at a big time college as a head coach. Somebody would hire him if he truly wanted it and they believed he wanted it. And you better believe someone would hire him as a defensive coordinator. You kidding? He was a great defensive coordinator. People forget he was the defensive coordinator when they won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. He was great as a coordinator. Who wouldn't want to hire him, for that?
And he has a military background. And Sean, hello, good evening. He poses a great question that actually was in my mind. Is there any chance he goes and coaches college and maybe coaches at Navy? You know what would have really been good, Jack? If he had gone to Alabama and taken Nick Saban's place. That would have been beautiful, at least in my opinion.
I'm not sure that the hire at Alabama, did Saban have anything to do with the next coach there? Because you would think Saban would have been in a prime position to maybe pick his successor the way Coach K did at Duke.
Yeah, it seems like that, but it seems like, there's over 2,100 students already in the transfer portal from the winter transfer portal before Nick Saban left. Now that he's gone, there's a lot of kids that are decommitted. They just had the quarterback that was coming from out west somewhere. He decommitted. He was supposed to be coming to Alabama. I kind of want to plug in real quick on that. There's a question that Rick posed earlier, and I don't want to not address it. So let me go back real quick. Let me switch gears real quick and talk about the Panthers. Panthers hired a head coach, Dan Canoles is how you pronounce his name. He's 42 years old. He's the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. I'm not 1,000% sold on why they would get him with Tampa Bay just now trickling into the playoffs. However, he is the only Hispanic coach now in the league. The league is really big on trying to be minority-based and minority inclusive at this point. We see all the other head coaches with the Patriots taking their first African-American coach and so on and so forth. But we'll have to see. They've given him a 6-year contract. but we know that means nothing because Tepper's still paying
How much
Rule,
money?
Phillips, and whoever
How
else.
much money? Tepper owes 2 coaches a lot of money.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
6-year contract. It sounds, a lot of years, but if he's vastly underpaid, this could backfire on a coach. What happens if they're Super Bowl contenders in 3 years and he's like the lowest paid coach in the league? What is he getting paid on average per year? And is he guaranteed 6 years? The payment. I kind of wonder.
We'll have to definitely see. I mean, I know as a Panthers fan, I'm exhausted and I'm not, holding out hope on this one, but I do want to address Rick's comment real quick. So thanks, Rick. He wants to know, because everyone knows the Panthers don't have their first draft because it belongs to Chicago, who we would pick in the second round. Well, I would have liked us to get Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's going to be gone.
Second round. They're not even close, Sonja. Come on, second round. Are you kidding?
Rome Odunze, like these are some good wide receivers we probably would have gotten. Even Devontae Walker, who's from North Carolina, maybe if he's still around.
They go 33rd. I believe they go number 33 in the draft. That's their first pick, the first pick of the second round. So they're 30.
No one's going to be there.
Players who are going to be taken. Actually, there's the recognizable names. Chances are there's going to be a quarterback there, like McCarthy, but I don't see them. They're not going to take a quarterback. That's obvious.
And I think J.J. McCarthy is going to get picked up quickly. They're comparing him to Tom Brady. I think Chicago drafts a quarterback and trades Justin Fields.
Yeah, but McCarthy might not go till the second round. Don't be so sure that he's going to go. Yeah. Early.
What about Caleb Williams?
Caleb Williams is probably going to go first, but we don't know for sure because we get the combines, and I hate the combines. So I don't know how you feel about it. I feel it's kind of like a dog and pony show to put on. You're showing skills like not under pressure. We talked a little about the sport of boxing in the beginning. It's like hitting the heavy bag and saying, I'm going to pick this guy to fight first. He looks so great on the bag, the way he moves around. And that's why my Jets took Zach Wilson, number 2 overall. He looked good in the combines, the way he could throw across his body. He looked awesome doing that. And teams, they outsmart themselves with the combines. They should skip the darn combines altogether for the elite college players. When the combines are good, once you get to the maybe 5th round, that late, you could take a chance on a guy, so you take athletic skills. If you have to cut him, you cut him, but not those early picks. But the Panthers, what do they need help with logically? The offensive line.
Yes.
But teams also make the mistake picking according to need and not picking the best player. The only time I could see picking according to need and not taking a better player, if it absolutely makes no sense, like the Falcons, they go 8th overall. If Brock Bowers is available and they think he's the best player on the board, you don't take him. You got Kyle Pitts there. So it doesn't make sense. You have to make another move in a case like that. But getting back to your question, it's a hard one as far as Justin Fields, Caleb Williams. If you take Caleb Williams, you're not getting Marvin Harrison Jr. unless you trade your next pick, which is number 9 overall, and your number 1 pick next year. You really make a bold move and maybe throw in a 3rd round on top of that. That's the only way that could possibly happen, and that's even unlikely. But you take Caleb Williams, you pay him on a rookie deal for 4 years. If you keep Justin Fields, next year you got to deal with him and keep him and pay him big money. And are you comfortable with Justin Fields as your starter?
Yeah, I don't know. Justin Fields seems to have just been coming into his own. We know he was very frustrated last season. And in fact, he was literally just talking about how unhappy he was with the organization as a whole. And I honestly didn't think he was going to still be in Chicago, but we always see things like this season has taught me that this is an unpredictable sport all around. Like from all of the backup quarterbacks that had a chance to come in, the display of rookie quarterbacks that we've seen for one reason or another, and the coaching carousel. Like they made Black Monday, Black Week, Black Month. Like they were firing throughout the entire month. No one waited, you know, and then even with Belichick, he was like the last one, and we still are not 100% certain on Sirianni.
No, Sirianni, they're retaining him. The Eagles got Vince Fangio as their defensive coordinator. They wanted him last year, but things got delayed, so wound up going to Miami. And Miami's defense, they kind of faulted at the end. He did a so-so job, but he has a good rep, and he should do a decent job with the Eagle defense, which was a mess. It really was a mess, even though they have good personnel on that team.
And you know, Rick commented, I meant to say this, the combine is like the Miss America pageant. You put on your best, you prance up and down, let everybody look at you, look at me. Here's what I can do. These are my thoughts on being a humanitarian. And they vote on you, and you know, you get it done. And Rick says everyone looks good in shorts and a t-shirt and the combine. Let me ask you real quick, Jack. So we mentioned that the defensive coordinator has now been hired with the Eagles. What happens with Ron Rivera? Because I know he was going up there to interview possibly.
Well, he's not going to the Eagles. Ron Rivera says he wants to coach anywhere. But at Ron Rivera's age, he's been through the mill. Would he get a job anywhere? I don't know. I mean, Ron Rivera can get a coaching job, maybe not a head coordinator's job, maybe a secondary coaching job. So, I mean, some team would pick him up in some capacity. It depends his pride, what he might accept and what he might not accept, because he wanted to be the defensive coordinator. You know, go from head coach to defensive coordinator, that's just a dip in status, but it's still prestigious. And if you're defensive or an offensive coordinator, you're one step away from being a head coach again if your teams have been successful.
Yes, and I mean, and it's one of those things, we still have Mike Vrabel out there looking for a job. I think Pete Carroll's going to be okay where he is as just consultant to the team.
No, he wants to coach. Pete Carroll wants to coach. Pete Carroll would go anywhere to coach.
Well, where does he go?
Where there's nowhere to go. And Pete Carroll's name doesn't carry the clout of Bill Belichick's name. I was surprised the Seahawks moved on from Pete Carroll. They were 9-8 last year. To me, it was disappointing. I thought they'd go about 11-6, be a playoff team, and they disappointed. But more so, their defense wasn't good last year. But with that said, them moving on from Pete Carroll, I don't think it improves the Seahawks.
And hi, Chris. Chris Tomei.
The Panthers, yeah.
What about the Panthers?
Well, Grable isn't really, and no, Grable isn't a Belichick clone, really. Just because Grable was a player for Belichick on the Patriots, he doesn't deserve that link. I mean, Grable is a really top-of-the-line coach. I mean, he didn't have the greatest personnel with the Titans this year. Titans played hard and were basically in every game for the most part. But I think Grable would command a certain amount of power. I don't think Grable, would go somewhere with a chain of command and be taking orders. And remember, all these new GMs, they feel threatened. Plus, they like to bring in people who they have a history with. You take the Giants, for example. Under normal conditions, Brian Daboll might be on the hot seat. After they made the playoffs the first year, because they got off to a 6-1 start, and then they were 3-5-1 the rest of the way, and then won a playoff game, and then had a really poor year this year. The Giants, the ball would be in the hot seat, but the GM Joe Shine, that's his guy from the Buffalo Bills. They were together. They have a relationship. The GM could control the coach. The coach likes the GM. They listen. They work together. So the only time a guy like Grable comes in and gets full power, if finally the owner gets tired of it, like with the Jets. Woody Johnson, the owner, he wants to run it back with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, it was an injury, it was a lost year, but I'm going to tell you, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and the Jets go 8-9 next year, miss the playoffs, good chance Woody Johnson, even if he keeps Joe Douglas as the GM, says, no, I don't want him here. And he would bring in someone else like a Mike Vrabel, like one of these powerhouse coaches.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I honestly am not surprised that Vrabel lost his job. I knew Belichick was coming at some point because he's just been on a downward trail. And I know people kind of say, hey, it was the Belichick way. I'm one of these people that feel like, Tom came to the South and still won. And so I'd like to probably, attribute both of them to having good playing style. Now, I'm going to move a little bit forward on that. The NFL as a whole, we have a lot. We have the 4 playoff teams that are up this weekend. They're 3:30 and 6:30, but don't worry, the games will not overlap on Sunday. You have the AFC matchup, Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs, or Chefs, should I say. And then that evening, we have Dan Campbell's Lions. I always say that because he's such a hype man. The Lions versus the 49ers. Are these two games close? That's going to be my first question.
Yeah, good question. I can't imagine the Baltimore-Kansas City game not being a close game. I'm not saying it's coming down to the last play. You got that feeling when Buffalo was playing Kansas City. It's coming right down to the wire. That was the easiest thing to predict about that game. Who would be the last, team standing at the end? It was going to be nip and tuck. Lion 49er game is so unpredictable. I mean, you wouldn't be shocked if the Niners blew them out, won something like 35-7, and you wouldn't be shocked if the Lions upset the 49ers. It's kind of like a wide disparity in that game, a real wide disparity. But something about the Niner team, they're not going to have Deebo Samuel in there.
Actually, they are. Actually, they are, Jack. He was cleared today. He practiced limited. It said he returned to practice as a limited participant, and today I think it was Yahoo News that said he will be playing in the game.
Oh, okay, good scoop, Sonja.
Yeah.
But let's say Deebo Samuel is in. He's not likely to be at 100%. Does he take away carries, plays from Christian McCaffrey? And the Lions, the Lions are going to have to be able to run the ball on the 49ers. I mean, Gibbs could be effective. Kyle Purdy, it's basically a wash as far as the better quarterback goes. But you just don't know in a game like that. I kind of have a feeling the Lions' time has arrived. I don't usually make picks on a feeling. I think the Lion defense with Hutchinson and the rest are really going to step up. And I don't think McCaffrey is really going to have a big game. He should have a good game. And I think nip and tuck game, I could see the Lions winning this game, maybe in overtime. How's 26-20 in overtime, the Lions?
I love that.
They go to the Super Bowl, and I think the Ravens beat the Chiefs by more than one score. Something like 27-17. And then the Ravens crushed the Lions in the Super Bowl. So that's what I think you're looking at. The Baltimore Ravens.
You're pulling for the Lions to lose.
They're not going to win. If they play the Ravens, they're not winning. They're not winning. I mean, it wouldn't even be close if it came down to that.
I'm probably the only person in America that thinks that the Lions can win it all, despite who they're playing against in the AFC. Thank you, everyone that's coming on. Hello, everyone on YouTube, Roku. I'm sitting here with the one and only Jack Hirsch from the Sunday Morning Big Football Show and boxing writer, my co-host for this evening. And hello, everyone. It looks like Rick is saying Deebo is playing, and he looked good with movement in the shoulder on the clip he saw now. So that's going to be pivotal, barring any future injuries during the game. So, but then they got Brandon Ayuk, they got George Kittle. They have a stable of weapons down there. So Deebo is just going to assist. He's not like the bearer of the entire team. So I just feel like
the Lions have weapons. The Lions have weapons too.
Yes, the Lions are definitely. I really feel like this is their year, though, Jack. It's like they've waited. They haven't had a championship since 1957, before there was even a Super Bowl, so to speak. They haven't even had a divisional since the early 90s, 91, 92, 93, that time frame. And so it's like, why not the Campbells? Excuse me, the Lions and Dan Campbell. He used to play with them, and I know it's a feel-good story, so to speak. But I'm saying, like, realistically speaking, that team even should have won that Dallas game. The only reason why they didn't win is because of the ineligible player that those refs ended up getting tossed out. They're not even coaching right now, or reffing, I should say, because of that missed call. Like, everyone saw that. So what are your thoughts
I
on
would have
that?
said, didn't C.D. Lamb fumble across the goal line and Cowboys could have had a touchdown in that game? They
Yeah.
didn't. There's such a thin line sometimes, winning and losing. We forget certain plays that happen early in the game and we focus on an official's play.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. That's what I'm saying. Like, this entire team, but Chris is saying that Jared Goff is a Super Bowl quarterback. We know he's been there.
Well,
So
yeah, he went to the Super Bowl with the Rams, and then what did they lose? 13-3. He was in over his head in that game. Jared Goff is a good game manager. He's a good quarterback. He reminds me of a student in school who gets all B's. All B's. A decent student, but nothing, he's not going to be on the honor roll. You're not going to find his name amongst the honor students. Good quarterback, Jared Goff. He sometimes makes a mistake now and then. It seems like the Lion fans recognize that about Jared Goff because they keep trying to pick him up. Notice that, Sonja. That's unusual. It's like they're looking to boost his confidence because they know there could be some issues at times with Jared Goff. He's done a good job this year, all in all, a good job. But they also know he could revert and go backwards, and it could be to the detriment of the teams. They keep boosting him, boosting him, boosting him. Other quarterbacks don't have to be told by their fan base, you're our quarterback. We love you, unless that quarterback is struggling. And normally a quarterback who's played as well as Jared Goff doesn't need to keep getting pushed by the fans. Yet the Lion fans keep pushing him. I've never seen anything like that.
Well, I think it's kind of like, because the Lions, went through this whole transition after having Matt Stafford for 12 years. And then, Matt Stafford's wife went through the whole brain tumor thing. And so they supported them as a unit, not just on the field. And so losing him to that organization was quite detrimental to them. And so getting Goff in at first was like, okay, why are we switching? And then Goff became their quarterback. Now, Chris pointed out he has won in San Francisco twice, and that system is actually a good system. The Lions are not the Giants.
Wait. We're talking about the Lions.
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. Well, he was with the Rams, and they went to a Super Bowl. So he was successful with the Rams. The Rams needed Matthew Stafford to take the next step. It was a good deal for the Rams. I don't care if Matthew Stafford never wins another game in his NFL career. It was a good move for the Rams because they might not have won the Super Bowl had they stayed with Jared Goff.
Well, I guess I agree with Chris, who's talking about he's a good quarterback. Now, he is a manager. He's in a good system. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's got Jahmyr Gibbs. He has a powerhouse weapons. Yeah. I think it's going to be a close game, and it's going to probably come down to who makes the least mistakes, who's going to get the least penalties, who's going to control the ball better and manage the ball better.
You're sounding like these analysts on TV. I could hand a person on the street a piece of paper, and they're going to sound like an expert. They'll look underneath and they'll say, yeah, the team that'll win will be the team that'll turn the ball over the least amount of times, the team that could have the greatest.
But they're two powerful teams. Yeah. So we have to differentiate. So it literally is, when you're talking about the Lions and the 49ers, the top teams going into this, we have to look at it like from an objective perspective where we're like, penalties. We see penalties eliminate people. We've seen them do that. We've seen the clock management is another key factor. whoever milks the clock the most, it's about keeping the offense off the field.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's talk about game, who could control a game better. We talk about quarterbacks. Let's talk about coaches. Who do you trust more as a game manager, as a coach in this game? Carl Shanahan or Dan Campbell? And I'll be honest about it, I would lean towards Carl Shanahan. Dan Campbell has done a wonderful job organizing the team, trying to give them a toughness and identity. He seems to be making mistakes in judgment, going for fake punts when he shouldn't, and this and that.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
I agree. If you're saying from a coaching aspect, then yes, I would say Kyle Shanahan, especially because he was an offensive coordinator for so long, and he has he's just a winner in that position. And honestly, last year, Jack, I think the 49ers would have really done well and possibly won if they didn't have the quarterback injury they had. They had Christian McCaffrey out there acting as a quarterback. I guess they thought he was Taysom Hill. It was sad to watch him trying to make a pass just because they ran out of people to play that position.
Brock Purdy couldn't throw the ball. It's interesting if it comes down to this. If one of the starters has to go out of the game, the backups. The backups have been around. Well, there's Sam Darnold for the 49ers. Hardly's gotten to play this year. When he came into one game for Brock Purdy, he actually looked good. Yeah, but Sam Darnold's been around. He's capable of playing a really good game. And the 49ers might not miss a beat if he has to come in. And then you take the Lions, you have Teddy Bridgewater, whose NFL career got off to an excellent start with the Vikings. Wait, it looked like he was going to be their franchise quarterback, actually. But it's he's long in the tooth. That's the best way of putting Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. And Teddy Bridgewater had a few chances to start after leaving the Vikings. He was with your Panthers, even as I recall.
Yes,
and
the journeyman.
He didn't do that badly, did he, with the Panthers? He had problems with the Broncos, but he wasn't the guy. He lost the starting quarterback position with the Panthers.
Yeah, we were kind of shocked because just as he seemed to kind of hit his stride, they went ahead and were like, okay, we're not going to deal with him. And he's been over many bridges and a lot of water because he's a journeyman throughout the league. And to be honest, though, Jack, I really don't think.
No, wait a second. He lost his starting job with the Panthers.
Yeah, I was about to get to that.
The starting quarterbacks for the Panthers wind up backups elsewhere.
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder, Jack. It looks like both of our former quarterbacks, including Baker Mayfield, who just got eliminated.
Not Baker.
Baker just got eliminated. He was a former Panther. Sam is a backup. He's working. Teddy Bridgewater is a backup. They got Christian McCaffrey. Like, we literally have so many Panthers that are playing in the playoffs right now that had the Panthers still kept these guys together.
They wouldn't have won with the Panthers. It wouldn't have mattered.
The O-line, if we had the old O-line, not the O-line we have currently. But so you're saying, all right, so the Chiefs and Ravens game, you're thinking the Ravens are going to get it. So you're basically telling me it's going to be Ravens versus 49ers in the Super Bowl.
No. The Ravens, I'm picking the Lions to upset the 49ers.
Oh, yay. We agree.
Picking the Lions. I think the Lions are going to come up with a great defensive effort, and they're going to hit some big plays. They have, big players too. We talk about Kittle at tight end for the Niners. Lions are pretty strong at tight end themselves. So and the Lions will have the running game. I think they're going to be able to run on the 49ers as well. And but you're right. It comes down to so many things. A big play on special teams here and there. One player a cornerback could fall down and the team could hit a big play. But I really think it's going to be a nip and tuck game, the Niners and the Lions. I feel comfortable taking the Lions with the points if I were betting, but I'm going to pick them shakily to win the game outright. I'm picking it to go into overtime. I'm bold. It'll be 20-20 at the end of regulation, and then 26-20. The Lions get a touchdown in overtime, go to the Super Bowl. I just think the Ravens-Chiefs game, I don't think Pacheco is going to have quite the same success to grind it out against the interior line of the Ravens. And Mark Andrews is coming back for Lamar Jackson. I know the Ravens don't have much of a running attack themselves, and I want to hear about Dalvin Cook coming in there.
Right.
Last week, but Lamar Jackson is their running attack. Okay, and with Mark Andrews, him getting his tight end back and a great play in Mark Andrews, the idea that they survived so nicely without a great player like Andrews says a lot. Laporta is great, and I think Laporta, by the way, Chris, is really going to have a big game against the Niners. Zach Ertz shouldn't be allowed to play in this game. I mean, I don't get this. You can just sign with a team and play your first game with them in a playoff game. Something is wrong about that rule.
Right. That's why I was like, chasing rings is my favorite thing to always say. You sign up with a team like soon as your team was eliminated, and now you're going to the playoffs, but you're going to get to wear the same brass they get it if the team wins. So Chris is saying they don't play well on grass, and it's going to be a difference of a turf. And dome teams are 0-10 as visiting teams and NFC champions. What a stat, Chris. Thanks for that. Lions
did. But Detroit has played a lot of games in outdoor stadiums. I mean, just because they're home in a dome stadium doesn't mean they haven't been on the road a lot and had success on the road. And, it's easy to forget the very beginning of the season. As I recall, the Lions were at Kansas City and beat the Chiefs opening game in Kansas City. So
I think that is true. Yes. And he says that Ertz is just an insurance policy.
Ertz, but when you have an outstanding player like a Zach Ertz and things aren't going a team's way, coaches tend to put those guys in because they've been through it so much. They're so reliable. But what does it do for team chemistry if you have one guy come in all of a sudden? It's his first game with the team on short notice. Supposedly they accept everybody, but you just kind of wonder the team chemistry, having someone just coming in, chasing a ring. How much satisfaction can it give a player? I don't get it. That's something I like about Reggie Miller, the basketball player. I know Reggie Miller is a big blowhard. I know that, okay? But Reggie Miller had a chance at the end of his career to go to the Lakers, go to the Heat, whatever, a team that was in prime position to win a championship. He didn't want to leave the Pacers. He says, I don't want to go chase a ring. It wouldn't have been meaningful to him. Kudos to Reggie Miller for that attitude.
And switching over to the NBA, thanks for that segue there, Jack.
I didn't know that.
Yes, we got just a few minutes.
That I transitioned in. Okay.
I told you were the co-host. I don't know how you missed that. You surely are co-host. Now, so we see the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant is out injured. We've seen teams that look really good last year that look like they had a good positioning for postseason, and playoff push. What do you think the biggest story is right now in the NBA as far as trying to solidify teams that should be in the playoff position? And do you think LeBron and them have the mechanism to go forth again?
I don't know the answer, Sonja. This NBA season is unlike any other I've ever seen. Normally we have certain teams, we know their status, we know who the top teams are, and we know who the weaklings are. But this season, a number of teams have suddenly grown up. 1 year ago, I picked the Minnesota Timberwolves to win the NBA championship.
Oh, wow.
And they barely made the playoffs, the play-in, and got eliminated. What a terrible pick.
Right.
But 1 year later, essentially the same team is in a position where they might actually win it.
We're one year off.
Yeah, what do they have? Something like the second best record in the NBA.
Yes.
Teams like OKC, all of a sudden they have a good record. The Houston Rockets are playing 500 ball on the season. You look at the Indiana Pacers, they're a solid team. their number, I mean, a number of teams that kind of surge at the Orlando Magic. They were a doormat team, and all of a sudden they're a little over 500 this year. So it's really unpredictable. And then the powerhouse teams like the Golden State Warriors, they might not even make the play-in tournament.
Yeah, I think they're done.
Are going to struggle a bit maybe to make the play-in tournament for all their great players. So the NBA has some serious parity going on, which is a great thing.
Right. And looks like, and you're right, the Warriors, which is one of my favorite teams, they are pretty much gone. Looks like former Grizzlies and Kings head coach Dave Jorger is going to be joining Doc Rivers in Milwaukee with his coaching staff. That's according to the Athletic Stadium. And also, just tonight, Devin Booker has scored 29 points in the first quarter alone. Does he have Devin Booker?
Yeah, when someone scores 29 in the first half, you start thinking at Will Chamberlain's historic night of 100 points. And the only way a player is ever going to score 100 points is, one, he's going to have an incredibly hot hand. But number two, that he has to be very selfish, and his teammates have to be ridiculously selfish to keep giving him the ball. And the other team would have to basically be playing him one-on-one, knowing even he has the ball. 29 points first half. If he somehow has over 50 at halftime, we'll see if they keep feeding him the ball. If he could have around 70 points at the end of three quarters, he might go for 100. But when all is said and done, let's be realistic about it. So he probably winds up with 55 points. But you hear 29 points is, remarkable for a quarter.
Right. And how sad about the death of the assistant coach for the Warriors, Dejan Milojevic, 46 years old. The team is in Salt Lake City, Utah, getting ready to play the Jazz. And he gets sick during that dinner, has a medical episode. We later determined or heard it was a heart attack. And he passes away a couple of days later, only 46 years old. And so, continuously, that's going to have an effect on the team outside of the other issues they've had with Draymond, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, definitely not, Jordan Poole, definitely not looking like the Splash Brothers anymore. It's just a whole, like you said, it's a different league. And I honestly think it's different from the NFL and it's different from the NBA. It's just an off sports year.
Yeah, the Warriors canceled 2 of their games. I mean, it shook the players up because this is real life that we're talking about. And you're with a popular assistant coach, and it's so tragic something like that happening. And the Warriors, I don't want to say are going to get broken up at the end of the season, but if things continue as is, they're not going to run it back. I mean, what move might be made? I would think it would be Klay Thompson, that they would somehow move on from. Klay Thompson is still a productive player who could help a contender, but I don't think he's the guy anymore. He's not quite the same player he was before, even though he's a good player. Steph Curry's not going anywhere.
Why would they not get rid of Draymond Green? He's like the cancer for that team.
Draymond's problems are less on the court than off the court. And it's not like Draymond Green is a hoodlum. He has an impulse control problem on the court. That's basically what it is. He's not a bad guy. He doesn't put the coaches down.
Well, he punched his own teammate, Jordan Poole. When you turn on your own teammate,
It was a cheap shot in impulse control. He grabs Rudy Gobert by the neck, saying he's protecting his teammates. He swings his arm around, hits another player. It happens very quickly with Draymond Green, very quickly. If he had a chance to sit down and think it out, because I once refereed in a high school league, okay, recreation league. And there was one kid who was a terrific kid, a great kid, but he kept complaining about my officiating and yelled this and that. I suspended him. We sat down. We had a heart-to-heart talk. Great kid. He says, yeah, he has to learn to control his emotions. He took full accountability. I make a bad call during the game. He says, you jerk, he yells out at me. And then I look at him, he goes, yeah, I know. He says, I can't help myself, And
Yeah.
Raymond Green, he got counseling. Let's see what's what. But the Niners are going to have to be broken up unless they can somehow get in the playoffs and make a run. And it certainly doesn't look like that's going to happen.
And we know about the conundrum down there in Detroit with they were one game short of having a straight consecutive losing streak before they finally won a couple of games, but looks like they're back to where they are. Just
I want to ask Chris a question if he can answer in one word, okay? Cade Cunningham, the first overall pick, hype a substance. Hype a substance, I want to know.
All right, Chris, you have your question. We'll wait for it in the chat.
Cade Cunningham, the equivalent of what the play was Bo Callahan in the movie Draft Day, more like hype than anything else.
Let's see.
Chris may have shut us off.
Nope, he didn't. But there's another comment I'm going to address him.
I get the feeling. It's all hype. Thanks, Chris. That's the feeling I get with Cade Cunningham. He puts up some good stats from time to time, but some guys, the stat numbers might look one way, but it doesn't translate into winning. They're not going to help a team. And you kind of wonder with Cade Cunningham, could that be the case? And if that is the case, he would be great trade bait for the Pistons.
Yes, that's so true. Jack, make sure you check out the comment from Rick.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, Rick's, I don't, which is Rick's baseball team? I know he's a Viking fan.
Yeah, so
what's Rick's baseball team?
Yeah, Rick, who is your baseball team? And meanwhile, Chris is saying that that he needs help. He's no MJ or Kobe.
Oh, is he the guy you build around? Oh, you build around MJ and Kobe. You don't build around Cade Cunningham. Maybe he could be a good second wheel to a star. I don't know. But this big three talk, it doesn't always work. I know Phoenix is on a winning streak right now, the Suns, but they've struggled a bit. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, they have their big three. You need depth off the bench. You need an all-around team. But we keep thinking of the big three. The Celtics have a big three. Tatum, Brown, Porzingis. They got Drew Holiday. They have some good guys off the bench. I mean, you need that overall balance.
You think Boston and Denver look good?
Well, Denver lost to the Knicks yesterday, and that got my attention because since the Knicks made the deal with Toronto for Anunoby, I can't pronounce his name good, the Knicks had been winning, but they've been beating a lot of weak teams. The Denver Nuggets come to Madison Square Garden. The Knicks get it done. Now, Chris, Monty Williams is a good coach. He's been proven to be a good coach. They signed him to a long-term deal. They're not going to fire him. They paid Monty Williams $78 million for 6 years, Chris. $78 million in the first year. He's getting $13 million a year. You think they're going to fire him and then pay him for 5.5 years? Come on, that's not realistic.
They want him gone in Detroit.
They want him, but he's going. I wouldn't fire him if I owed someone all that money. I'm not going. No way you fire him.
Said the Knicks are playing good, but the Celtics are his pick to win the NBA title. That would be with Jason Tatum and company. Unfortunately, guys, our time is wrapping up. Jack, it's been an amazing, amazing show. Thank you so much. I will definitely love to have you back on again. Everyone, thank you for tuning on tonight. Thank you for the comments, for the love, for the shares. Everybody, thank you so very much. And Rick, thanks as well. Fun show for tonight. And see you guys tomorrow. And Sunday, he says, everyone, have a great night and a great weekend. And with that, we are going to bid you good night. Thank you so much, Jack.
It's been a
This is Northeast Streaming Sports.